That's not the start of a satire. It's not a joke. That's the real moment I knew my neighbor Karen had finally lost it. Let me take you back a bit. It was a Saturday afternoon in late June, the kind of day made for lemonade, jazz music, and floating in a pool you paid for with 30 years of hard work. I'm Walter, 52 years old, blue-collar raised, white-collar retired. I live in a modest home in a quiet Raleigh suburb. My backyard pool, that's my sanctuary, my escape. After a week of noise, stress, and news headlines, it's the one place I can unplug. That day, I was stretched out on my favorite float. The water was calm, jazz played low from the outdoor TV, and the sun was doing that perfect late afternoon shimmer. Peaceful. Until I heard her voice. "Walter, you've been in that pool for 3 hours." It came from beyond the 6-foot cedar fence I installed for privacy. The kind of fence that says, "Please, mind your business." But Karen? Karen doesn't do boundaries. She's the kind of neighbor who acts like she was elected mayor of the cul-de-sac. Clipboard energy, bob haircut, and a voice like a fork dragging across a dinner plate. At first I laughed, thought she was joking. But the look on her face? Pure fire and brimstone HOA righteousness. "Water is a community resource," she snapped, "and you're hoarding it." That was the moment I knew this wasn't about the pool. It was about power and control. And when people like Karen lose a little of it, they'll do anything to get it back. What happened next? Let's just say I'm glad I installed those security cameras. Stick around, because what started at a lazy swim turned into a legal standoff, a viral HOA meltdown, and one of the most satisfying moments of poetic justice I've ever experienced. After that unforgettable moment when Karen lost it over my pool, something inside me shifted. I knew I wasn't about to let her overreach continue unchecked. I had always believed in peaceful coexistence. But when your neighbor uses a 6-foot cedar fence as a mere prop to claim you're hoarding water, you're forced to take a stand. I spent the next few days double-checking the HOA documents. Sitting in my favorite recliner, I flipped through the well-worn binder that contained the community covenants and restrictions. Nothing mentioned limits on pool usage or mandated water conservation on private property. I even called the property management to confirm, and they assured me, in no untermed terms, that my pool was entirely within my rights. That validation gave me the
I decided to
resolve I
install
needed.
security cameras around my property. I set up 3 cameras, one facing the front, another covering the pool area, and a third capturing the backyard. These cameras, I thought, were not just for general safety, but as a safeguard against any further intrusions by Karen. With everything in place, I hoped to capture the truth on record. A week later, on another sweltering Saturday afternoon, I returned to my pool, confident and at ease. I slid back onto my favorite inflatable lounger, a cold glass of lemonade in hand, and let the gentle sounds of low jazz from the outdoor TV lull me into relaxation. The golden late afternoon sun sparkled on the water as I drifted, letting my mind wander. For a moment, it felt like nothing could disturb my tranquility again. Then, it happened. A sudden, splashing sound shattered the silence. I sat up abruptly, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I turned towards the source and saw, much to my disbelief, Karen standing on my pool deck. She was about 10 feet away from my float, her hair dripping wet and her phone raised high as if capturing a coup. Her eyes burned with that same fierce determination, and without even a pause, she shouted, "Walter, you're trespassing on community resources again." Her voice, laden with accusation, echoed over the water. I stood up, trying to maintain my composure. "Karen, this is my property and my pool," I said evenly, though my voice betrayed a hint of frustration. "I pay for my water. I'm not disturbing anyone." But Karen was unyielding. With a smirk that clearly spelled trouble, she pulled out her phone and started recording again. "This isn't just about pool time, Walter. I'm documenting your wastefulness for the benefit of our community," she declared, her tone sharp and condescending. Before I could respond further, I heard the unmistakable sound of sirens approaching. Within minutes, 2 police vehicles pulled into my driveway. Officers Harris and Coleman stepped out, their faces set in calm yet inquisitive expressions. Karen immediately launched into a rehearsed monologue about how I was hoarding water and depleting community resources, even going so far as to claim that my behavior had triggered a disturbance. I calmly pointed to my phone and then to the security cameras. I explained, "As you can see, this is my private pool on my property. I've installed these cameras for exactly this reason, to document any trespassing." The officers reviewed the footage on a tablet I'd prepared. The video clearly showed Karen climbing over my locked gate with a folding ladder, entering my backyard, and then aggressively recording me. The evidence was undeniable. Officer Harris then addressed Karen firmly. "Ma'am, this footage clearly shows you entering private property without consent. That is trespassing. Your claims are baseless." At that point, Karen's confident facade was crumbling. The officers took her statement and confirmed with my records that the HOA had no such water usage rules. Karen, now caught in her own web of contradictions, could only offer weak excuses before the officers informed her that she was being cited for trespassing and misuse of emergency services. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of vindication, a reminder that standing your ground with evidence and calm can prevail against entitlement and false authority. Karen's actions were not just a nuisance, they had real consequences. Later that day, as the story blew up on local social media and a nearby news outlet picked up the viral video, I realized this wasn't merely about my pool. It was a lesson about protecting your personal space, your rights, and never letting someone's delusions override the truth. And that's the real takeaway. Always stand firm for your peace, document the truth, and let justice do its work. I didn't expect things to escalate that far. Honestly, when I showed the police the footage of Karen climbing over my locked gate with a ladder, barging into my backyard and filming me like I was some kind of criminal, I figured they'd just issue her a warning, maybe tell her to stay away. But they did more than that. After watching the footage, Officer Harris turned to Karen. She was still clinging to her clipboard righteousness, trying to spin the situation as some noble effort to protect the community. But I could see it, the crack in her voice, her hands fidgeting, the flush rising in her cheeks. Officer Harris said, "Ma'am, you entered a locked private yard without consent. That's trespassing. And calling 911 to report a non-existent crime is a misuse of emergency services." Karen tried to protest. "But I'm part of the HOA. I'm allowed to monitor." I cut in calmly. She was removed from the HOA's architectural committee 2 years ago. I confirmed it with the property management company. And those community pool usage rules she's quoting, she printed them herself. I've got that on camera too. Officer Coleman raised her eyebrows and held up the laminated sign Karen had brought, the one that said things like, "Maximum immersion time, 120 minutes, and no nocturnal swimming without HOA approval." She stifled a laugh.
Karen's face
"Is this
turned
real?"
beet
she
red.
asked.
"I just wanted to maintain standards. He's swimming way too much." Harris shook his head slowly. "He's within his rights, ma'am, and you've clearly overstepped yours." Right there in my backyard, the officers asked Karen to hand over her phone, then informed her she was being cited for trespassing and misuse of 911 services. She lost it.
I am the law here, she shrieked, backing away as Coleman gently but firmly placed her in cuffs. No one stood up for her. No neighbor peeked out to support her. It was just the echo of her own voice bouncing off the pool water and the soft click of handcuffs. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But inside, I felt something shift. Not because I won, but because for once, the system actually worked. Later that evening, I got an email from the HOA management company. Karen had been officially banned from participating in all community meetings. They encouraged me to file a no-contact restraining order and offered legal guidance if I needed it. That night, I sat by my pool under the soft string lights, jazz humming low through the patio speakers. No yelling over fences, no bogus rule signs taped to my gate, just me, a glass of lemonade, and the kind of silence that feels earned. The kind of peace that says, you stood up, you didn't stoop down, and you got your life back. By the next morning, the whole neighborhood knew. The video footage, Karen sneaking in, ranting about water abuse, getting cuffed in my backyard, was already making the rounds on our local Nextdoor group, Facebook, and even a Reddit thread titled, "This HOA Hero Just Snapped." I hadn't shared it, but someone must have caught the incident from their Ring camera or saw the police cars parked in front of my house and decided to ask questions. The internet answered. The comments poured in. She's always been that way. Thank you for standing up to her. I've been terrified to say anything, but she once screamed at my kid for roller skating too loudly. Wait, she printed fake HOA rules? For the first time in years, people who had stayed silent out of fear, exhaustion, or pure avoidance started to speak up. Turns out, Karen had built her own little empire of fear on half-truths and laminated lies. And just like that, it crumbled. The HOA management company didn't just ban her from meetings. They issued a cease and desist letter for impersonating a board member. They even added a memo to the next community bulletin. Reminder, only elected board members are authorized to enforce HOA guidelines. Personal interpretation is not grounds for
worded public
enforcement.
takedown I'd ever seen. But the best part? Peace. Not the quiet kind you get from noise-canceling headphones, but the real kind. The kind that settles in your chest like warm sun after a storm. No more surprise yelling over fences. No more fake rules taped to my mailbox. No more side eyes from people unsure who was right. Just neighbors waving again, nods of respect, even a few thank you notes in my mailbox. One neighbor, Rick, from across the street, came by with a six-pack and said, "About time someone stood up to her. You did the whole block a favor." And that's when the idea hit me. It started as a joke, but the more I thought about it, the better it sounded. A party. Not just any party. A pool Liberty Bash. I sent out invites to the whole block. The tagline? Come float freely. No time limits, no Karen. By Saturday, my backyard was alive with music, laughter, and the unmistakable scent of grilled burgers. Kids splashed, adults relaxed, and at the center of it all, floating peacefully in the deep end, was a life-size pool mannequin, complete with a stiff bob wig and sunglasses. Around his neck hung a laminated sign, "Pool usage rules, totally real, definitely serious." Below it, in tiny print, Rule number 1, swim as long as you damn well please. People roared with laughter, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the neighborhood felt like a neighborhood again. Not just houses stacked next to each other, not just people living in parallel silence, but a shared place where someone finally said no to a bully and reminded everyone what community was really about. And as I floated there, lemonade in hand, jazz playing low, I thought to myself, sometimes peace doesn't come from staying silent. It comes from standing up, even if your feet are in the deep end.